All right, welcome, one and all, once again, esports fans, back to the PCS Spring Split 2022. Man, that new title sequence always gets me excited. I hope it does you as well. I am Pyrotechnics. Joining me on this broadcast is, of course, none other than Nightstar. How the heck are you, man? It's been a long time since the summer split.
I'm so excited to be back. I'm glad to be back. And wow, what a makeover we've had since summer as well. And of course, we got to see a lot of those new faces, new teams yesterday, but we get to start off with probably the biggest highlight new team.
You are absolutely correct. I cannot wait to get into our matches today, but before we do that, I would like to take a brief moment to thank our wonderful sponsors for making the PCS Spring Split possible. They are, of course, CTBC Bank and Caliber. And yeah, you said it when you said makeover, Nightstar. It is not only a look and feel makeover that we've got here on the broadcast, but also the entire league, it seems. Everybody's changed up a lot of players, several new teams brought to bear in this one, and we are going to see at least one of those very highly anticipated squads making their debut today, as they were not able to play out a match yesterday. That has, of course, been delayed, so if you're wondering why there's only 4 matches, we will have more to compensate going look at yesterday's results. Before we get into today, only a couple of surprises, but I think the biggest one for me was up at the top there with Deep Cross Gaming, the ex-J-Teamers beating J-Team.
Yeah, J-Team did kind of split into 3 factions here. DCG, J-Team, and what will be our headliner first game here in CTBC, Flying Oysters. Honestly, DCG looked very impressive coming out with the Smite Enchanter strategy, and J-Team, maybe looking to regroup with some new strategies of their own, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, J-Team definitely, we expected more coming out the gate swinging, but for Deep Cross, certainly finding an opportunity and taking it. The other matchup that I think was maybe not a shocker or a massive surprise, but certainly an exciting one, was Beyond Gaming versus PSG Talent, and Beyond pulling out the win there with just a really masterful command of their own team composition. Excellent drafting across the board, and also Kino, shout out to him for some excellent set play. Taking a look at our standings, of course, it doesn't mean a lot when there's only been one game for everyone, and not even for everyone, with CTBC and Sen9 not yet playing, but for the most part, I think we are expecting a stack of probably about 4, maybe 5 teams to really sit apart from the rest of the squads. But there is plenty of time for all of these teams and all this fresh-faced talent to prove us wrong in that regard.
Of course, there's plenty of time to continue to build synergy, continue to refine their own play, and more importantly, we have more undefeated teams in our league than LCK does, so.
That's true. That is, don't look too deep into that statement. Figure out why. No, it's absolutely true, and we take those, right, Nightstar?
Absolutely. And then once MSI comes, we'll also show them, no doubt.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that is a long way coming for sure, but we will have to see, as we have several more weeks to play of all of these games. And, so much new talent. It was hard coming into the split to know exactly what we had to look at, but we saw some really solid team play from a number of teams, even from teams I don't think we expected it from, and I'm excited to see if that can maintain into today. But let's take a look at our matches. As you mentioned, one of the very highly anticipated teams, CTBC Flying Oyster, are going to be taking on Frank Esports, your namesake, of course. After that, we have J-Team versus Impunity, as J-Team will try to regroup from a loss yesterday. PSG also trying to regroup up against the likes of Hurricane Gaming. And then Meta Falcon Team are collegiate players taking on Beyond Gaming in a big test for that squad.
Yeah, and the matchups to really look out for today would be those bookends, right? We've got CFO taking on Frank Esports to start off today, so you get that brand new roster of CFO coming out. And then at the end of the day, we have Meta Falcon Team, our big collegiate squad, really put to the test against Beyond Gaming. We'll see how far a collegiate roster that has a lot of synergy already built into it, how far they can take it when it comes to taking on the big dogs.
It's going to be difficult. Yeah, you mentioned dogs. Even without Doggo, Beyond have looked excellent. Wako slotted in quite well, and Minji just had a banner of a day on that Akali. But, diving into our first matchup, we'll get into the rosters in just a second. And I think it's interesting. People will probably be looking at that squad, Flying Oyster, and wondering what is to come of them. We'll get into them in a sec, because yesterday we had some really outstanding players. Obviously, Nesty coming out with the Bard Smite mid to really throw J-Team off their game. Had an excellent show on that champion. At the same time, we also saw Liang on, of course, the whole Breaker Tryndamere. We know what it is. We know what it does, and he executed it perfectly. Full marks for him.
Yeah, I would say the more interesting one was the Hullbreaker Tryndamere. It's not exactly an item we'll see built onto it, Tryndamere, very often. But if you are really throwing yourself into solely that split push set of mindset, I think this is very powerful. And the interesting part of both of these items and playstyles is that it really focuses on playing around this top lane in very different ways, right? In the first game where we had Bard, you didn't play anyone in that top lane. And then with Liang's game, it was, we're playing exclusively through top lane.
Yeah, well, it was a slow game in a lot of the lanes, right? And of course, Beyond had 2 losing lanes in the mid and bottom, but they were able to keep the game pace slow. And poor Hanabi kind of just had to watch as his gangplank was going to get pushed in and in. I liked what Beyond brought yesterday. It showed that they still have the team cohesion that we were expecting from them, that their new players have slotted in really well. And yeah, they really trusted Liang to make that play. However, we do have a substitution when we get into that game today, because Lee Kai will be getting some time on the Rift. And I'm interested to see how he will do. It seems like a number of our up a lot of those strong top laners. But let's take a look at our first roster for our first team tonight. CTBC Flying Oyster. You know what? CTBC Bank is not just Taiwan's #1 and premier financial.
They're also...
And they look really good on paper really quickly. So I'll let y'all know who is on that team, because honestly, there's so much hype there. Up the top half, this is a terrifying 3-stack, and Atlan and Koala, while not quite as strong, should be able to hold their own against a chunk of the league.
Right, and I think for a organization like CTBC, if you're entering a brand new league and you really want to make a splash, this is the way to do it. When you bring out these big names, even Atlan Koala, while we might not rank them at the top when it comes to duo combinations, you're still bringing them from a very strong Machi organization. Rest in peace, Machi. But they're also going to have that built-in synergy with Gemini, and a lot of the game right now is played through mid, jungle, and support. So having that built-in jungle support synergy is going to help out a lot in these mid-game rotations.
Absolutely, and of course for Frank Esports, much more of an upstart team, really had to throw their roster together at the last minute. They are Kurt, Holo, Pretender, who you might recognize as Kana from the PSG Talent bench, Eminem and K2 rounding things out. I feel like this is a team that is going to have a lot more strength on the bot side comparatively, just because Eminem and K2 certainly showed up yesterday, whereas we haven't yet seen enough of Kurt, or even really Pretender, to know where this team's going to be. If there is going to be a hinge, it'll be Holo there, right in the center of your screen. He's a very experienced jungler, and I would definitely say the stronger part of the two that made up the Boom Esports rotating roster last split. We really like to see him on these hard engage tanks and bruisers. And Gemini, a more measured jungler, might find he wants to dial the aggression up a bit to match.
Right, and for Frank Esports, it really does come down to the bot lane at this moment, because they are the most veteran players along with Hollow. So I think it really comes down to just getting your solo laners eased into this league, make sure they're comfortable on the stage, and then slowly but surely they should be able to grow from there. They are quite talented in those roles after all, but it's about figuring your way through the early portion of the season, as I think a couple of these teams are looking to do, namely PSG, the big headliner in that regard. But into pick and ban, it should be expected, but red side banning away the Zeri, it should be pretty much perma-banned on red side if you are looking for a perma-ban that side.
We got to see it once yesterday. I fear we may not get to again, but it will be banned away alongside the Twisted Fate against Mission. Meanwhile, CFO, Flying Oyster, going to go ahead and get rid of the Akali, as well as the Xin Zhao, and of course the Renekton. We did see a little bit of mid lane last time around. Pretender, of course, he had his first debut on Victor. Not a champion you consider banning quite as often. I'm curious to see how this mid lane will go, too, because Pretender has a lot to prove. Mission has been around forever. But he's also a lot more of a sit-back-and-wait kind of player. And, you know, screw that point, because with the Caitlyn ban, we leave the Gwen up. This has not made it through picks and bans a whole lot as of yesterday, and Rest gets his hands on it. That could be a tough lane for Kurt.
Oh, man. I know when I was highlighting and doing my research on this roster, of course, for CFO, it doesn't matter how that bot lane does in my eyes, as long as Rest gets his hands on the Gwen, probably the best Gwen performer in our league, perhaps even the best top laner in our league, especially with a lot of the talent condensing in some of these rosters topside. And getting that first pick, while it does show your cards a little bit, definitely Rest's best champion and deals with a lot of these AD carry picks very, very well.
Yeah, it could be a bit rough on the Frank Esports side. They will round out with a strong duo for Eminem and K2. That is going to be the Aphelios and the Thresh. However, they've still left a lot of power on the table, and, you know, this has kind of been the de facto matchup we're seeing. It's the Aphelios versus the Jinx. Yeah. You know, you get a little bit more stability on one hand, and then you get a absolute glass cannon pop-off champion on the other. CFO are already looking to pack quite a punch here in this pick ban phase.
Yeah, as far as the champions go, I love the champions on the side of CFO. For the side of Frank Esports, the Aphelios Thresh, very, very good in lane against the Jinx, and that's what you pick the Aphelios for, to win lane, because later on, Jinx will outscale the Aphelios, which, I mean, yes, the Aphelios still does a lot of damage, but the range differential between the two champions does become more and more apparent later the game goes, and we are going to get Mission locking in his Syndra. This is really designed to just deal with the Aphelios right now from the side of CFO, because you have the Syndra stun to keep Aphelios at range, and if he ever tries to walk up and doesn't get hit by the stun, he's eating rockets from Gemini, or not Gemini, from Atlan, and Rest is just going to immediately jump in on him as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of burst, a lot of damage on the Flying Oyster side, and I really like this pick from Mission too. Looking at the teams tonight, I was a little worried. I know we talked about this. I was a little worried that Mission might default to, you know, a more defensive champion, his Orianna, or maybe there might be the Lissandra or the Azir coming out. But Syndra is definitely a champion that can blow people up, and Mission knows that he's going to need to do that at least a couple of times. So he's gone for it, and I respect it. I appreciate it. He does put a target on his back, but if there's anyone who knows how to play a safe lane, it's Mission.
And now kind of comes down to, well, we do see the Gragas here locked in by Frank Esports, and that leads me to think that CFO will probably put this Gwen into that top lane. We have seen Gwen flexed, but when you do have more of a tank matchup up top side, I think Gwen is just such a perfect champion in that matchup, who just basically gets to free scale without much punishment. Could still be a bit of a pivot, but I don't expect a whole lot from Frank Esports, at least from a draft perspective, to bring out something unexpected.
Yeah, interesting choices in some of the bans too. You can see that Ahri ban looking like a target at Pretender, as he does end up blocking in the Victor, same champion we saw him on yesterday. Meanwhile, the focus for Frank in that second ban phase was all on Koala, trying to put Atlan really in a tougher position, not being able to be quite as protected and quite as covered. But there's still Leona to bear. That's a pretty good default. It comes out so often in this league, it doesn't really seem like it matters which year, which season. The meta's not going to shift too far away from a Leona. And of course, the Lee Sin not being touched does mean that's an opportunity for Gemini. So all said and done, they kind of round out a little bit of, you know, mid-game power spiking here, but they've left Viego open for Hollow, and that is a little scary.
Viego always a threat to pop off in these fights, but it really just comes down to how much damage he has in his backline to help support him. He's not the same champion as he was at the very beginning upon release, where he had the damage to really generate his own resets. Now he's very reliant on the rest of the squad, and they do have a relatively strong high DPS backline. In the Victor, in the Affiliates, we see this combination quite often, but the big thing here is if Gwen does get into that backline, it is going to be devastating. If Lee Sin gets into this backline, it will be devastating. There is not a whole lot of mobility on this backline, and it kind of goes both ways, but I just like the CFO draft just a little bit more because of how well Rest plays on the Gwen, and also Gemini on Lee Sin, one of his better champions as well.
Yeah, I think the comfort and the level we've seen from those two players is certainly something to be wary of. And, obviously you can't ban out all the power picks if you're FAK Esports. Looking at it across the board, I know you said you favored CFO just a little bit, but it is interesting that the win conditions are kind of the same, right? Like it's going to be either on Rest Gwen getting into the backline or on Holo's Viego getting into the backline and any follow-up that comes through, because there is high DPS. This is going to be an explosive match to kick things off.
It should be explosive here, but we know CFO, their players are pretty tempered when it comes to their aggression. So
they're chill. This is the chill squad.
Yeah, so I expect FAK Esports to really try and amp up their aggression and try and take it to them, at least in the 2v2 when it comes to the support jungle combination. I need to see plays come out from Holo and K2, bring out their aggression, try and snowball around bot lane, and if that works, then they can really try and go to town and trying to control the bottom half of this map.
Absolutely. I think they will be the difference makers in this match. If FAK Esports are going to give it to Flying Oyster, they need to be a little bit more aggressive from the jungle and support position. What I do like about K2, as far as aggression is concerned, he is an AD carry. So he knows all about getting up in your face and getting aggro and trying to get the kill. We saw a little bit of that from him yesterday. Of course, this is a player that has role swapped a couple of times and is now once again in the support position. But I do like the duo of him and Eminem. What they've been bringing out so far has looked good. One game in, hard to draw a lot of concrete conclusions, but for a team that, let's face it, they were cobbled together pretty quickly, they have done quite well. And if they can pull out a win here, that is a magnificent start. For CTBC, they obviously have a little bit more pressure on them, but they have an incredibly strong core of players. And my only concern is that bot lane gets rolled over early, because Jinx is a champion that if you shut her down, it's a feels bad man.
That is true. Jinx can take a while to get going, but thankfully the pieces around her are also very, very good. The Syndra can get a target low really quickly with that R combination, and Lee Sin in the mid game does contain a lot of burst as well. So even if Jinx doesn't come online very early on, mid game there's still that big pop off potential because of how much deletion power is built into the Lee Sin Syndra. And then of course you have Gwen just doing immune things.
Yes, Gwen is immune. I remember listening to you. We were watching LPL in preparation for the split the other day, and I just keep hearing, Gwen is immune. It's okay. Gwen is immune. Over and over. It's a meme at this point, but it works. I do like this bit of cheese early on. Mission tried to roll top and see if they could get a quick kill. Nothing doing, but I respect it.
Yeah, and it's really just about getting some of this brush control right now here for CFO, as they went ahead and swept out that bottom ward. Of course, in a semi range matchup with the Thresh bush control is really nice here, being able to have that extra range to deal with a Leona at least level 1 when she's not going to take the Zenith Blade. She usually opts for that Q opener. Should be a really nice start here, as it will be a red side or red buff starts for both of these junglers.
Taking a look at our keystones as well, and the runes on the board too. No huge surprises there. This might be the game with the least amount of lethal tempos I've seen so far on 12.3. But, you know, it is the champion choices. Of course, Atlan's still going to be rocking that one. I do love the new build for Jinx, and I just love that this is a season where these types of exciting AD carries can have so much impact. The teleport change was such a massive game changer.
Yeah, the teleport changes really bringing out the era of hyper carry in that bottom lane. And I will say that big thing here is that both of these teams starting on the red buff really, again, exemplifies how these teams want to play, right? For the side of CFO, they want to play towards rest. They want to play towards mission. They want this top side to succeed. And of course, it's the opposite coming in from Frank Esports. They want to get their veteran players going early to really dictate how this map will play out. Let these solo laners kind of operate on their own and try and just be as stable as possible.
Absolutely. I think trying to keep the stability going as long as possible certainly helps out. Early in this game, I do want to see what Gemini does, because you mentioned an interesting tendency of his in the pick ban phase, that he's a little bit more of a tempered player. He looks for the opportunities, but he's not going to get in your face with the aggression. That's something that I don't think we'll have to worry about too much on the opposite side for Holo, and I'm wondering if Gemini is going to try and match that, because he is on a champion that can have a lot of early game impact.
Indeed, and if he's able to get together with Koala, of course, that has a lot of burst potential themselves because of that Leona passive, being able to add extra damage. And nice little sidestep for Pretender, actually allows him to save his summoner, and now Holo is nearby.
Mission is playing a dangerous game right now. He's low on mana,
lead,
trying for the play. That's going to be a little bit of damage. And the channel forward burns the flash.
Oh,
that's a flash for flash, actually.
Yeah, it is a flash for flash, and it looks...
Oh, here it comes! Oh, no! Gemini didn't quite have the execution, but no harm, no foul. What a close call. Even Koala was there for backup, but... Oh, boy. Mid lane got a lot spicier than I expected it to be early.
Yeah, no,
and they're not done yet! Oh, dear.
He's gone.
1-2. How do you do? That's going to be first blood. Gemini with the finisher. Just a little bit too greedy to stay around on that low a health bar, Holo.
Yeah, and that will be first blood coming down onto Holo. Really nice pickoff coming in from CFO to start this game out. Good rotations coming in from both of these supports, but the Leona just there faster, so Thresh not being able to arrive on time ends up getting kind of split off here by how the side of CFO were grouped up, kind of due to map terrain as well, and it just results in being able to secure that first blood onto the Viego. Yeah,
that's a nice start. If you are going to be the side of CTBC, and in their first game here, didn't get to see them yesterday, so now they come out here. Definitely a team that is hyped. I mean, make no mistake, they're pretty favored at the moment. You can see why. Look at this, the 2v2 turning in favor of CFO. Atlan wants to get excited right now, and he might just do it. However, Gemini can't quite finish up the hook from K2. Are you kidding me? What an absolute legend right now. And Gemini, no, they finished the job. Oh, it's a 1-for-2. Frank Esports bot lane almost turned that around.
Just being able to get one back is still going to be nice, but at the same time, you concede a kill over to this Jinx, and now it just comes into, well, can Holo just go ahead and clear out the entirety of this top side? Maybe he's able to try and get some control, but there's not a whole lot to do up in this top side. The wave is coming over to Kurt, so perhaps it provides an opportunity to go for a top lane gank, but more than likely it's just going to be trying to secure that wave for Kurt, making sure he's okay in that regard.
Oh, and now Pretender.
Oh, he just turned 6!
Again, he got blown up at the last second. That turned to 6. Holo is going to be able to get revenge there, but Pretender's having some trouble in this lane.
Oh my god, that was just perfectly timed coming in from Mission, knowing that he was 1 minion away from level 6, takes the trade early on, knowing that the minion's going to die and give him level 6, and Pretender just didn't expect that. Ends up getting blasted and gets soloed out by Mission. Well done there. Holo being able to pick up the scraps at least, gets a little bit gold to help recover himself, as he was kind of put quite behind early on because of that death towards the Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, we talked about this game getting pretty action heavy early, and we are not disappointed here, Frank. Right now, Mission and Gemini are going to be doubling up on Scuttlecrab. Atlan is playing with a lot of confidence, but I wonder if he should be a little safer here. That's going to be the pull-in, and Holo is going to set his AD carry up for a kill. And Koala, I don't think you've got anywhere to go, buddy. This is going to be a clean 2. Gemini just going to have to wave goodbye to his bot lane. Well done. Holo off to a flying start.
Beautiful setup coming in from K2 right there. And great Thresh play. And, I mean, Atlan, it looked like he wanted to bait out the fight, but unfortunately he baited only himself. As he takes the death there. Knowing that Gemini was around, they probably wanted to take that 3v3, but Gemini not quite there fast enough to bail him out.
And this is what we worried about a little bit with this bot lane, right? Just pound for pound, they weren't necessarily going to be the stronger one. And it's also, you know, how coordinated they are able to get in position with their jungler. More important to set up Holo with these kills, and also Eminem, who's able to use that extra gold to upgrade his boots. While going to be able to get some vision out here, but yeah, it's a lot of tit for tat down in that bot lane.
Yeah, and because of just the reset timer coming in from FAK Esports, they are able to at least secure the dragon for the side of CFO. So that will be Hextech Dragon going into their hands, but
might pay for it. Gemini, good dash away on the safeguard. Eminem was looking for an opening, couldn't quite find it there. Also, Scuttle Vision getting the speed boost certainly helped out. Bit of a, it does seem like there's nothing on this map that you can do without like at least some threat of a reaction. But Gemini does manage to get away.
Yeah, and so far, Pyra, it's really living up to kind of what we build for the success of FAK Esports in this game, and that is playing around K2 Holo, make plays around them, get super aggressive, and try and get picks. And that's what they've been able to do so far. 2 kills onto Aphelios, 2 kills onto Viego. They're playing around this bot side exactly as planned.
Playing around the win condition, and I think the one thing that we really haven't seen much of yet is rest Gwen up in the top, and that's understandable given the fact that, you know, again, teleport changes, you can't be as impactful early as you used to, and you're up against Gragas. Kurt's job is to just hold rest as long as he possibly can right now, and that will change over time. In fact, he is going to come down and at least give an assist to Gemini on the Rift Herald, but yeah, I mean, FAK Esports doing a good job. You know, we thought that if they were going to challenge Flying Oyster, this was the way to do it. Double up with Holo and K2 and make the plays, snowball the Viego best you can, and see if you can take the win that way. So far, they're off to a good start.
And this is where things should start picking up for the side of CFO. You get that Rift Herald, and you don't have to give anything up for it. I think that's the big part. Usually, a lot of these teams will rotate their bot lane or one of their bot lanes up, and that team gets the Rift Herald, but then they sacrifice, you know, pretty much 2 to 3 plates in that bot lane to make essentially that trade pretty much worthless in that regard. But they don't have to sacrifice anything, and they have the possibility to really snowball rest here on the Gwen, getting him plates, and given the fact he also has the Ignite, he just has so much 1v1 pressure that should just be the clear lane to get going.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, it's a lot harder for the rest of the team to react here. You can crack up the top and then, you know, gain a little bit more Rift Herald control for the next time it spawns yourself, and then try to work your way around the map. It's also playing to the strength of your team as well, right? Like, Atlan and Koala are the weakest sides of this roster, and you're still going to be able to scale as long as you haven't been completely shut down. And, well, would you look at that? Atlan actually has a slim CS lead.
Does indeed, and now actions coming back into this mid lane, but because of that control ward, that will stem that one, although now it looks like Mission and Gemini are looking for the rotation up into this top side.
He knows.
This is exactly the play that they're going to call for. They're going to throw down the Rift Herald. They're going to try and make a dive happen on Kurt. He has to clear out this wave as fast as possible.
He doesn't have his ult. He doesn't have any mana right now. This is a little bit of a tough situation, but it looks like Flying Oyster realized maybe we're spending a little too much time up here. They back away before Pretender can match.
Yeah, and it's understandable in that regard because Gragas is such a difficult target to dive post level 6, but at the same time, he didn't have his ultimate, so there definitely was the possibility to just kind of break this map open. And this is, again, one of the drawbacks of kind of these players, right? They players from J-Team, and I would say the more tempered individuals coming in from Machi. There's not a whole lot of there's no one to really go full on aggression, right? To really
Yeah.
be the one who starts the fire in them, and they're gonna just kind of play to their namesake. CFOs, they're just looking to make money as carefully as possible.
I mean, I guess, banking it up on the Oyster side for sure. I do think Gemini needs to be the one that can be hitting the go button, right? He's not only the jungler, an impactful role with the initiation potential, but also he's the player who, even though he's measured, he probably has a little bit more aggression in him than some of the other squads. Although they may just be waiting for some item spikes, as you can see that Riftmaker picked up. Koala forced to flash away. This bot lane is forced to burn summoners at a somewhat alarming rate right now, Nightstar.
Yeah, and when we also kind of talked about just between the two of us, what is the way for FAK Esports to get in, at least as far as lanes go? It was K2 M&M, right? They're very aggressive from their previous splits, and it's really showing here in Atlan Koala, probably the weakest laners coming in from the side of CFO, and FAK Esports, they're taking full advantage of that fact.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I think like Eminem in particular also should be like well aware of what it's like to like work with a heavy initiating jungler, because he did spend all of last split with Kongye. So we'll have to see if it's going to work out for them. FAK Esports, they did showcase some strength yesterday in their match. They will be able to pick up a dragon here just due to the timers, and honestly, they just have so much control over the bottom side of the Rift at the moment. But opposite story up top. Here's going to be the delayed Rift Herald push. You can see Kurt trying to clear the wave. Instead, it looks like they're just going to go for a push on, but a really good explosive cast actually slows things down, and Shelly gets distracted by a wave? Oh, dear.
Eyes on the prize, and that was money for Shelly. Yeah. They didn't want the other ones, which they'll still get the tower.
Is a Rift Herald also a form of oyster? It is a crustacean, I think.
It is definitely...
It's not a shellfish.
Yeah.
She does have a shell.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Chad? What type of sea creature is Shelly?
I don't think it's going to fit in the oyster fam. It's not...
I can dream. She's more of a mussel, not an oyster.
Yeah. Agreed. But this is a really... Of course, this is kind of the expected move coming in from Flying Oyster. I would have liked for them to try and have done it a little bit earlier, but they still are able to get the plates and the first brick gold, which is really all you wanted to do. At least put that money onto your Gwen.
Yeah, it's not the flashiest or most exciting way to do it, but you can make it happen. Speaking of flashy and exciting, good old 2v2 down here as the teleport will come in for the rescue, and in fact, with a rocket from downtown helping finish off the health bars here, it was actually FAK Esports that got turned on, and Holo is going to get deleted by Gemini. 2-for-0 down there, and they picked that fight.
Yep, past 14 minutes, teleport gets unleashed, and that's exactly what happens. Rest just unleashes himself onto the map, teleports down into that bottom side, makes that a very uneven numbered fight, as Mission also makes his way over, and FAK Esports just out of position, unable to really find their mark there. As now this is where things will really turn interesting, because Rest, of course, has just oodles of gold on himself, almost 6k, so he's got a 1500 gold lead over his opposing member, and I'm no doubt this next team fight happens around Dragon, I'm going to be saying Gwen is immune.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be the case. I mean, Riftmaker first item completed, got the boot upgrade as well, and has a lot of money in the pocket to go shop. Let's take a look at how that fight began again, because K2 had an opportunistic hook, but it was on Koala, and pairing with Gemini, it feels like the damage just wasn't quite there.
Yeah, it actually wasn't a bad start to the play, right? You're trying to look for a hook starter, and because Eminem was shoved up all the way to tower, it meant that Atlan wasn't able to contribute, and if Atlan wanted to, he was going to die, because Eminem nearly 1v1'd him. And...
Yep.
Hey, Gwen.
It has begun. It has begun. Eminem found out the hard way that those scissors have quite the edge to them. Unfortunately, as we get 16.5 minutes into this game, and CTBC starting to pull ahead a little bit with a 4,000 gold lead. Mission and Gemini will double up. Another Rift Herald crushed. Meanwhile, all of that happening. Although and Pretender will get here to try and defend, but this is still going to be a big charge. And I think they might have enough to crack this tower. And in fact, wow, with the good scout of the week, they actually managed to push them off entirely. She'll get another charge off of this. That'd be huge. I don't think she will. Gravity Field popped. Gemini actually getting hooked here. Flayed back in.
Oh,
and he doesn't go down. Are you kidding me? Atlan even running wild into the back line. He gets one. They look for two. An unleashed power, and Atlan's still pushing for it. What a ridiculous swing here for CFO.
Wow. What a bonkers turn of events right there. Because they nearly get the kill onto the Gemini. That would have... Okay. Gemini's full HP, by the way.
Yeah, you know, that's okay. Yeah, okay. I feel like let's look at. I'll talk about that in a minute because let's look at the solo kill again.
Gwen is immune.
Gwen is definitely immune. Sorry, Eminem. But yeah, I feel like K2, his hooks are cursed. He gets the hook and then he dies and then his team dies.
Yeah. I think Rest is more of a Skittles guy.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah. Definitely didn't like the M&Ms there.
Well, they gunk up the scissors, you know? Too much chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate does get to be a little bit messy. Also melts a lot easier than Skittles.
This is true. This is very true. But we'll debate the merits of candy later right now, Frank, because at the moment,
6
CTBC,
seconds.
they're not just banking it up. They are looking for even more here. The Dragon is on the Rift. They do have an Ocean this time around. Kurt, what are you doing, buddy? You're on the wrong side of the map. And he goes right into the pit, gets the belly bop off to Gemini to rejoin his team. And we've got a good old-fashioned Dragon dance right now, Nightstar.
Yeah, but Frank Esports, they're taking this fight, or looking to take this fight, when they have an 8k gold deficit. This is going to be very, very difficult to win here. So, they want to get this objective bounty, and they're just going to go ahead and try and flip here.
Yeah, it's a little risky right now. Holo taking a lot of damage as they move in. The Smite fight is on. It gets secured by Gemini, and the fight is going. And once again, Rest was running wild, but meanwhile into the backline. What a massive combination between Mission and Atlan. Gemini acting cleanup duty right now as the double kill comes in from Mission, and they will be able to complete the delayed wipe, buying a little bit of time, or letting Eminem buy a little bit of time, as he does dish the damage out with those chakrams. I don't even think they need it. They're just going to teleport Reston and feed him the kill right now. Ow, excuse me, Mission.
Mission accomplished. There we go.
Yeah. Wow.
But, I mean, this mid-jungle has really started taking over these fights, right? You saw at that Dragon, I believe it was Koala going in, but then a huge follow-up coming in from the rest of the squad. Atlan getting a ginormous rocket, hitting, I believe, 4 men. I'm not sure if he hit everyone with it, but right here, rocket comes in, and boom.
3. Yeah. At the very least 3. I can't believe that moment that Kurt sets up the explosive cask. It actually looks like, all of a sudden Atlan could be in a lot of trouble. But he just does so much work to sidestep into the pit, dodge the Chaos Storm. By the way, Kurt's dead again. Yeah, we started this split looking at Atlan thinking he was going to be one of the weaker AD carries. He is looking really good in his positioning. Not that he has to try that hard, given how bonkers the rest of his team is playing.
And I think that's going to be the recipe for success for the side of CFO. Just make sure Atlan's able to get his breakpoints when it comes to itemization, right? You don't need him to be a superstar laner. You just need him to be there when it matters, that scaling part. And just let the rest of the team do their thing and just, ride their backs. And that's exactly what's happening here.
And sometimes it's just a feels good, man, when you get to just launch off rockets and play safe as Jinx. Cosmic Drive completed now for Rest as well, so another big item buy for him. And yeah, he's big. He's not even he's certainly not the flashiest part of this team right now. Like, I gotta hand it to Gemini and Mission. They are just they're just Goomba stomping.
Yeah, and Mission, look at his items. He's got so much penetration built up. He has the Shadow Flame, he has the Sork Boots, and of course the Ludens. And there's just no way to survive any burst at the moment. More than likely, he's looking for that Void Staff next, so even if they throw in a little bit of magic resistance, it's not enough. Good
scout of the week there. They're actually fighting on 2 fronts as they keep the Baron procced, and You can see Frank are not super keen to contest this right now.
They're trying.
Yeah, huge damage on Mission. You can see it's a
They're
big gap in
here.
experience. And let's see if they can pull off the kill right now. The Rocket will come and soften them up as the Baron is still being held. Gemini's not in this. It's a 4v5. And they'd already deleted Kurt and Holo off this one. Rest a little bit low. They're keeping the Baron going. And Mission, he's just playing Gatekeeper.
Yeah, there's just way too many stats to compete with at this moment. It's 14k gold. It gets inflated a little bit more right there because of that Baron. It's going to get worse, and it's pretty much going to be a full item difference coming in to close this game. So it's rough. That's all I can say.
You know, we said this was going to be a little bit of a test for Frank Esports' new roster, and for some of the newer players. Pretender, of course, has a lot to prove for himself. But, you know, it's hard to get an experience gap this wide just because Mission's been around so long. And it also apparently is reflecting as an experience gap in the champions, too.
Yeah, for sure. All of these players very experienced on these set of champions given to the Mission on the Syndra. Of course, a huge legacy player, as we mentioned earlier. Rest, this has been his absolutely dominant pick, as he is very immune in that instance right there.
He is immune to loss.
Yeah.
He has loss prevention on Nightstar.
Indeed he does, and now they're going to try and look to break open the base, but possibly end the game.
Yeah, is a lot of damage. Oh my goodness, once again, Gwen is immune. Rest over the wall, and everybody follows. Goodbye, Kurt. Turbo Chem Tank is doing absolutely nothing to keep that Gragas alive, so they crack the base wide open. My goodness, like a peanut inside of an M&M. And it's going to be enough to finish off not one, but two of these inhibitors. I wonder if they just keep going. They got a lot of power left. And they still are holding on to Mission's ultimate, so that threat is massive with all the Magic Penny adds. I think this is going to be our fastest game of the split. The way things are looking, CTBC Flying Oyster just looking to go off to a flying start as Rest just completely ignores the Chaos Storm of Pretender. The Baron-empowered minions are marching through. Gemini was looking for a swag kill onto K2, may not have gotten it, but they will absolutely get the game. Just under 24 minutes, the Nexus is in their sights, and with a whole heaping helping of damage, they will get a first victory in the PCS spring.
Man, what an impressive win coming in from CFO. Yes, some of that early game was a bit rough here, and credit goes out to Holo, M&M, and K2 for finding plays in those in the time frames and being opportunistic, but the firepower on this roster, once those solo laners came online, they really just took it to this new roster.
Yeah, that was honestly some beautiful mid and late game League of Legends right there. Early game, you know, a handful of errors we can point to, a little bit of overstepping their bounds on the bottom side, but all of that honestly to be expected. CTBC Flying Oyster wholly living up to the hype that we had put on them, that everybody had been considering. They certainly were raking it in this time around, and great play from them. Frank Esports, I think they learned a lot after this game, even if the result was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, the result wasn't good, taking the loss there, but they showed a lot of promise, right? They were able to find early picks onto Gemini. They were able to get kills onto Atlan. But the issue was they just didn't understand where they were at the game, right? They took that third dragon. That definitely should have been a dragon. They just conceded there. And because they took that fight 8k down, that's what really spelled the end, because at that point, you just don't have the gold to keep up. And the game really fell away from there.
Yeah, I felt like the top side of the map was so difficult for them to really do much about. Like, they really just kind of set Kurt out there on an island to say, all right, just hold the Gwen off as long as you possibly can. And they came up at least once to try and help him out and stop a push, but all it did was delay the Rift Herald by like 3 minutes tops. It feels like Frank, you know, they are still finding their footing. They are still kind of getting their feet wet here in this league. And of course, you know, it is a lot of players that had not had that much time playing together themselves. Some of them are very new to this league in general. All things considered, you know, this was always going to be a bit of a David and Goliath story. Coming in, they were definitely not the favorite squad. We saw some glimmers of the hope that they'd be able to do quite a lot. Holo, of course, combined up with K2 early on to get some good plays, to set some things up, but it just wasn't enough to forestall this snowball that CTBC were able to build up. And I think still, against the bottom half of the league as it forms, Frank Esports definitely have a shot to stand out.
Yeah, I don't think that this is the end of Frank Esports by any means. This is just a very rough opponent here on day 2 of their split. So still more than plenty of games. And I think, yes, their player profiles with how strong M&M, K2, and Holo have looked at the early onset of games, I think that's going to get them a lot of wins towards the middle and bottom pack of the team. So it's certainly a good look for them. They just need the young guns in Kurt and Pretender to get online. Sooner rather than later definitely helps, but eventually once they get to that point, I think they'll find their stride.
Absolutely. So just for a moment, let's do a little quick exercise as we're going to be loading up our MVP and our results. And imagine you are the head coach of Frank Esports, if you, unless you secretly are, Frank, if you will. What do you say to this team after the fact, after they take a rough but very expected loss to get them back on their feet for the next match?
I think you just really focus on how well that early game did go for them. And then when you go back into VOD, just be like, hey, look, this third dragon, we don't need to take that fight there because we already got an earlier dragon. This isn't going to be that sole point for our enemy team. We can go ahead, concede that one, and then you can also point out, hey, just press tab. You know, you can, if you press tab in that instance, you'll see that you're not going to calculate 8K necessarily, but you'll see that we're very far behind when it comes to items. So I think it just comes down to a little bit of perspective now that they are out of game. But in game, sometimes with a new team, things you're a little bit too caught up in that moment.
Yeah, it can be a little hard to take yourself out of just the immediate and say, all right, take a step back. We don't need to contest this right now. You do look at the damage that was dealt in this one, and I think it's not a whole lot of surprise that the Jinx is rocking the most, but everybody on CTBC were firing on all cylinders. I really, really loved what we were seeing, especially out of Mission and Gemini, rest things, and of course Atlan. I mean, yeah, really big props. I kind of expected that lane to get rolled a little bit harder. And he not only held on, but was able to find a couple of 2v2s, was able to find a little bit of help from his jungler to keep pace and even go forward. And then, of course, once it got into the mid and late game, that's when the Jinx pop-off happened, and he stayed safe in those 5v5s. So even though they were up in gold and had every reason to win those fights, especially at the Dragon Pit, he was able to keep his position and keep his footing. It's not easy to do in a champion that has no escapes when it seems like every other one does. Except maybe Aphelios.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the play really breaks down to Gemini just having a really outstanding game, setting up a lot of these plays as he does take that MVP. Mission also contributing a lot here, but it was Gemini. Yes, he stumbled a little bit in a couple of these early game scenarios, but overall just played very, very well, securing the map for his squad, got a lot of objectives as well, being able to get both Rift Heralds, so really well done from him.
Yeah, Gemini had a fantastic performance. It's no surprise he picks up the MVP award for that game, and honestly, I loved every bit we saw at CTBC there, Frank. I think this is a team that certainly is a squad that's going to go far, possibly a title contender. We'll have to see. There's so many new faces, so much uncertainty in this league, and so many more games to go. I am very excited, and we are going to take a break, but don't go anywhere because when we return, J-Team takes on Impunity.